And a good Tuesday morning. Welcome to the show. This is Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Reservations open for our 2025 Great Escape, November 9th through the 15th. The Ryu Resort in Kukulkan. This is Cancun. It is new resort, not just for us, but a relatively new resort to the world, opening in 2022, I believe. Luxury, top of the line, and just an incredible Great Escape. Of course, we'll be broadcasting live, doing the show there. You can be part of all of that by joining us, and it all gets laid out for you. At least the trip there and back with all of us. No, once there, you can do whatever you want, hang out with other KSGF folk, or just go off on your own. It is your Great Escape, after all. Just under $2,000 for the garden views, a couple hundred extra bucks, give or take, if you want an ocean view. And that covers everything. We're talking 6 nights. This is direct flight. The flight is covered. The taxes are covered. The tipping is covered. It is absolute all-inclusive. If you've not done an all-inclusive before, I just cannot recommend it enough. It is just very, very liberating. And that, you don't need to worry about your wallet. You get up after dinner. Now, if you've not done the Great Escape or any of these all-inclusives before, it can feel a little awkward the first day or two. You're at a restaurant and you're just like, do we just get up and leave? There's no bill. Do we have to sign something saying, "No, this is what room we're in"? No, you just get up and go whenever you're done. I do have to warn you, you get pretty used to that after a week, and I've had the stories relayed to me by some of the Great Escape people how they've accidentally, upon returning, walked out of a restaurant without paying and realized it on the way out. Like, oh my gosh, I've been so used to just getting up and leaving when we're done, forgot we actually have to pay the bill. So that is part of the Great Escape experience. The details, ksgf.com, and full payment isn't due until July. So if you're like, I don't have it right now, gosh, if I could just wait a month or so, you can go ahead and put down your deposit, $500 a person, and that will reserve your slot on the flight with all of us, and then, of course, your junior suite. And then when the time comes, you can make those payments, and then boom, you're ready to go with us on the Great Escape 2025. Details at ksgf.com. Want to talk about some continued positive news that is occurring. Sadly, doesn't get covered by the media. If you listen just to standard news, you would think that our economy is in complete turmoil. You may not have known this. You may not have known that prices are just skyrocketing everywhere because of tariffs, and the world is gravitating away from the U.S. and towards China. I mean, that's what you'd think if you listen to them, when in fact the reality is quite different. And there's a couple of different stories about how U.S. companies, some U.S. companies, are seeing record-breaking orders because of these tariffs. There was an article, and it was titled, the exact verbiage escapes me, but it was along the lines of, well, Americans love to talk about buy U.S. of A. I guess we'll see if they really mean it. Well, apparently they do, at least in some capacity, because those record orders are coming in. Also, there are a massive number of Chinese companies that are moving to Texas, to Nevada, to a number of other primarily red states, but throughout the United States because of the tariffs. Because they're recognizing that it will be cheaper, it will be easier on them as a business to move to the United States of America. Because ultimately, and I keep hearing this, and I get it, well, what's Trump's plan for this, and what's Trump's plan for that? I think that we need to recognize that there's this expectation that Trump secretly has an exact plan for the exact outcome. That every country, obviously including China, he's got some envelope somewhere, and there's the exact outcome written out, and that is what the desired outcome is. But this is what you've got to understand about Trump's approach. And by the way, the approach of many successful people. And that is, you are looking for the United States in this case, or your private business owner, your business, your company, to end up in a better position. And that could be a whole variety of different things. I suspect that while Trump may in his head know exactly what it is that he wants with some of these countries, a lot of them, he just wants it to be better for the United States. And that could look like a number of different things. So when it comes to China, for example, or the new prime minister of Canada is going to come down and visit Trump. I love these people that trash all over Trump, these foreign leaders. Or you listen to the commentary, and it's pretty much accepted that the reason the elections went to this new liberal prime minister in Canada is because I'm really going to show Trump and I'm not going to deal with that guy, and I'll really, we're going to stand up for ourselves. And then as soon as he gets elected, I'm going to go down to the United States and see if I can meet with Trump. I mean, it's like, okay. Trump was asked about it. He's like, I don't know what he wants to talk about. I mean, I think we could probably figure out. He's going to try to get into the good graces of Trump. But back to the original point, I think we need to recognize that this frustration of, well, what is it exactly? What is it exactly Trump wants with China? What is the end game? The end game is that we are in a better position than we are now. This is part of the reason that, frankly, and some of it is time constraints, obviously, with all of these different countries, instead of coming up with these individual plans for every country based off of the current economic situation and relationships with that country, that there's a plan of everyone, and then we're going to meet with the leaders of every country and say, this is what we want, and then go back and forth and try to negotiate. Instead, Trump is like, hey, things are unacceptable. We're on the short end of the stick here. So here's what I'm going to do. We're going to put a tariff on everyone. And even if it's just like that, that's still going to benefit the United States because that's revenue that is going to be coming into the Treasury, and we'll be able to cut income taxes because of that. Now, if you don't like that situation, I'll be willing to talk to you about how it is that we can work something out to where the United States still ends up in a better position, but you can diminish the impact of the tariffs by slashing them, or perhaps they go away altogether. You have some ideas, you want to come to me with them, come bring them on over, and we'll talk about it. We get so insistent on, part of it's just a psychological need for security, that there is some official outcome framework that Trump is wanting, or the other solution is, well, he just doesn't know what he's doing. This is what he does. And I know that it is sometimes difficult to just say, okay, I'm going to put my faith in this guy, but is that not why he was elected? Now, coming up, let's see, we'll get weather news. The Chinese companies moving to the United States. And this also defies what many people believe in terms of the ability or willingness for people to move to another country, to the United States specifically. And I understand the instinct to say, well, it takes forever. It's going to take forever for them to, and the amount of time it takes to set up shop in the United States and to build a factory, get going, that's going to be when Trump's gone, so these businesses won't actually do that. Well, it clearly isn't as simple as that, because there are a tremendous number of companies that are doing that. Now, many of them are moving into facilities that are already existing. It isn't necessarily every single situation is a situation in which they have to start from scratch, and they get the poorly golden spray-painted shovel for some photo op where they dig into the ground. Oftentimes, the infrastructure's sitting there. We've got weather in a moment. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see partly sunny skies with a high near 74. Tonight mostly cloudy and then a chance for thunderstorms after 4 a.m. with a low around 55. For your Wednesday, those showers and thunderstorms will continue throughout the day with a high near 66. And looking ahead to Thursday, mostly cloudy in the morning and then a 70% chance for rain in the afternoon with a high near 68.
Ozarks elder law, you may be thinking, all right, well, when the time comes to shift this particular family member to a nursing home so they can have better care, assisted living. But they have all these assets, and so they have too much money, too rich to get qualified for Medicare, and so we got to start thinking about selling this stuff off. Ozarks Elder Law can build a strategy where you don't have to sell it at all. Every situation is different. But if that is your thinking, you're already planning ahead and thinking, well, at least there are assets we can unload. It's a shame that mom and dad or grandmother and grandfather, they've worked their entire life to build this, and they're just going to sell it off in their final days so that they qualify to get that sort of relief and that sort of support. Don't do that. Visit with Ozark Elder Law. You think, oh, we got it all planned out. We're just going to write it as a gift. Because that means since they don't pay for it, there's no taxes on it. And I'm telling you, we sort of tell ourselves these wonderful outcomes without recognizing we are dealing with the government here. In order to be prepared and to make sure that your family doesn't get screwed, Ozarks Elder Law. You can find them, ozarkselderlaw.com, also ksgf.com, under Nick's endorsements. A growing wave of Chinese manufacturers are packing up and moving to the United States because of Trump's tariffs on Chinese goods. Trump's tariffs had made it too expensive for many Chinese firms to export goods to the United States, forcing companies that once thrived on cheap labor in Asia to set up shop in places like Dallas, Houston, and Reno, according to the South China Morning Post. For some, it is the only way to stay in business. Quote, the United States accounts for nearly 95% of our orders. It's not a market we can afford to lose, says Ryan Zhu, who runs a novelty gift business in eastern China. Zhao is opening a new facility in Dallas next month as a result of a 90% tariff on Chinese shipments to the United States. Now, this is significant because, again, there's this stereotyped timeline that we have in our minds that it takes years and years for a company to close up shop in some other country and then move to the United States in order to be in a more economically friendly environment. And that's just not always the case. Now, it may certainly be that case in certain scenarios, but I think that those who, well, I know this is the case. People that want you to believe that none of this will work, people that want you to be down on the United States, that want you to think Trump doesn't know what he's doing, they don't want you to know that it is possible and it is actively underway with a lot of these businesses to move to the United States. That timeline is not so far out that it is not advantageous for many of these different industries. And by the way, what is Trump known for? Building things, right? Real estate. He has, and not just real estate, but he has had a number of different lines of businesses and still to this day has numerous offerings. And one of the things about Trump, and I believe this is why it is, that he is so able to tap into what is important to the average person, is that he has always found an interest in what is going on with workers at his sites, at his facilities. You know, he's a guy that has been known to, if there's an issue with having to switch providers of materials for concrete, he gets down there on the ground and talks to the people who are doing the shoveling, talks to the people who are doing the mixing, because he sees value in them because they have information that he would like. And so he talks with everyone. So this is somebody who understands the inner workings of numerous different industries and what it takes to pick up an industry and move it across the street or across the world. So I think that we oftentimes forget that as well, and we just, Trump he doesn't have any idea what it takes to move a business. I think that he probably does. Zhu Ning, a consultant who advises Chinese firms on overseas expansion, says that he's handled more than 100 relocation inquiries in the last 4 months alone, a level of interest that was unheard of before Trump's tariffs kicked in, per the, what's the name of the paper again? The South China Morning Post, SCMP. These are not American companies coming back, but they are Chinese companies coming to the United States for the first time. So this isn't simply clawing back something that left. This is adding to our economy. For years, they undercut American workers by exploiting loopholes and subsidies, leading to an influx of cheap goods and synthetic goods. Now they are scrambling to stay afloat. Quote, "The goal is to survive and stay competitive," said Leo Lee, who just opened a sensor module assembly plant in Nevada, Business Standard reported. "Our costs will rise, but not as much as they would with tariffs." So again, this is this particular quote with this particular industry has already opened their assembly plant in Nevada due to the tariff situation with the Trump administration. Electronics and novelty goods, not the only industries being impacted. Trump administration officials have emphasized domestic mining and production of critical materials to break the U.S.'s dependence on foreign nations, particularly in sectors like energy and defense. Now, there are, of course, with everything, you got the good, you got the bad. You got we don't know what's going to happen yet with this, but we're hoping, and we predict the best, but we are going to have a watchful eye for the downside. And I think it's fair to say, given the problems that we have had with the Communist Chinese government, whether it is spying or attempting in numerous different industries to have influence over the United States, that when you have some of these people that may be Chinese citizens, have family back in China that are responsible for opening these facilities here in the United States, if we don't keep a watchful eye on that, that could be problematic. Not for this administration so much, but we saw under previous administrations, the Communist Chinese set up secret police in the United States, and we allowed it to happen. These are secret police that masqueraded themselves as being, outreach organizations for Chinese Americans that needed help learning how to get a driver's license or needed help learning how it is to navigate mass transit in the city. But in fact, what they were there for, secret police, to keep an eye on these whether they're Chinese citizens or Chinese Americans, in order to make sure that they're not participating in any anti-China activities. Not to mention espionage on university campuses. So China has been a problem for a very, very, very long time in a number of capacities, and having them set up shop here, that is something that reasonable people will be concerned with. I mean, look here in Missouri, the discussions we've had about, prohibiting the purchasing of land by the communist Chinese. And so it isn't something that should go without worry. Again, this administration, not so much perhaps, but we've seen in the past the willingness of leadership in this country to bow to and turn a blind eye to the nefarious efforts of the communist Chinese. But in the context of factories, it's unrealistic to expect these to start popping up in the United States. It's happening already. Now, I'm going to take a quick break. There's another story about American manufacturers. These are manufacturers that are already here. And there are certain industries that have absolutely blown up with orders because of the tariffs. I'm not here to claim that tariffs, every result of a tariff is a wonderful thing for everyone in the United States. I'm just trying to highlight some of the areas in which it has proven to be beneficial for our economy, for our national security, for individual employees, for owners of businesses. Because as you know, we get bombarded with all of the bad, all of the negative, and the media does everything they can in order to make you believe nothing is coming of this other than total, complete confusion and chaos and skyrocketing prices, which isn't actually happening. Yes, all right. American manufacturers overwhelmed with orders after Trump tariff crackdown on China. American manufacturers seen a surge in demand. As Trump's tariff forces companies to reconsider doing business in China, Trump's tariffs, including the 145% levy on Chinese goods, causing American-made products to be more competitive in the market. This is one of the reasons behind this. This is why, at least partially, this is an upside of it. As a result, many small and medium manufacturers are experiencing a surge in demand and are preparing to ramp up production and hire new workers. No doubt you have seen stories about how the tariffs are going to hurt small businesses. Well, this is a much different tale. And while, again, this doesn't mean that there will not be some small businesses who have relied on the cheap labor that results in cheaper products from China, that's the upside for small businesses. The upside for other small businesses, those that do business here in the U.S. and they rely on U.S. or some of our other allies other than China, this is something that's been beneficial or is becoming beneficial. Juergens Inc., a Midwest tool maker with less than 500 employees, says it is, quote, going like gangbusters trying to keep up with demand, the Wall Street Journal reported. They are now seeing an influx of orders from customers looking to avoid import tariffs along with steady defense-related demand. Now, the irony here is that the Democrats and the media portraying all of these tariffs as something that is going to be a massive economic blow to small businesses might actually be forcing or encouraging some of these small businesses to go ahead and make the switch because of that fear. And it may be in many instances unfounded. A lot of times these tariffs are not nearly as impacting as they're expected to be. I'll give the example that I know I've heard before, and you may have as well, when it comes to, let's say, Nike. There's this misunderstanding, and a lot of it's because of the media, that if a pair of Nikes cost $100 and you put a 20% tariff on it, that means it's $120. It isn't a tariff percentage on the final product. It is on what the cost is to produce. So if you have Nikes that cost $10 to make in China because of slavery, just it doesn't have to be Nike, but let's just say any shoe manufacturer that it costs $10 and then you slap a 20% tariff, that's $2. And so whenever there is discussion about a number of these industries that absorb that cost, when your profit margin, when when it costs $10 to manufacture and you're selling them for $100, and then your cost because of the tariff goes up to $12, you can still sell it for $100 and make a pretty reasonable profit. And so while that's just one example, that is how the tariffs work, and that is understandably not the way that most people understand it. And so when they hear 145% tariff, they believe that means whatever it cost us to purchase here in the United States, you jack that up 145%, and that's not the case. Back to some of these American manufacturers, the less than 500 employee Juergens president, Jack Schroen, told the Journal, "We're running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we are swamped." Grand River Rubber and Plastics, a plastic rubber manufacturer in Ohio, says customers that once offshored to China are reversing course, the Journal noted. 2 buyers who left years ago returned within days of each other, and 2 new oil filter manufacturers have already placed orders. The company's new business could amount to $5 million annually, roughly 10% of their entire revenue. These are massive numbers. Got to get a traffic update. More examples from the Wall Street Journal coming up. Pyramid Roofing Company, talk and text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt. Sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see partly sunny skies with a high near 74. Tonight, mostly cloudy and then a chance for thunderstorms mainly after 4 a.m. with a low around 55. For your Wednesday, those showers and thunderstorms will continue throughout the day with a high near 66. And looking ahead to Thursday, mostly cloudy in the morning and then a 70% chance for rain in the afternoon with a high near 68.
Hey, if you need a full-blown advocate on your side when it comes to selling your home, or maybe you're buying a new one, Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. Perhaps you have family that is moving to the area. You know some political refugees that are moving from California here to Missouri, where the values are, less crazy, more normal, and they don't obviously have any realtors that they know. This is one of the areas that a lot of people have been very, very pleasantly surprised that Emily Johnson is able to manage. It can be quite a feat just to help someone find that perfect home, what they're looking for, what satisfies their needs. But you add into that they are all the way in California, and that's something that, frankly, a lot of realtors just won't even hassle with, but she does. If it is in this area, she knows the people. She's got the connections with all those folks out there that do the home repairs if that's needed, or just anything. She is the one with the hookup. Home buying, home selling. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. The Wall Street Journal has a piece highlighting the small businesses in the United States that are already seeing massive increases in orders because of buyers, which for many of them are at companies, that are making their purchases from them because they are already planning, and some of this is proactive planning, to shift away from relying on China. This is how businesses work. Smart businesses, they don't wait until the tariffs kick in. They begin scouring the landscape. And the interesting thing, we hear so much about the need for consistency, right? And there's a lot of truth in that business flourishes when you can predict. You're making predictions and you're making decisions far out into the future. And so what that has resulted in is a number of these different industries that need to buy products. They see what is going on with the tariffs in China, and that end of things is unpredictable, right? But the guy or the family that owns the manufacturing company here in the United States and has for 40 years, that's pretty, that there's stability there. And so they look to that, and even, they may say to themselves, well, but if that company from China moves to the U.S. and then they lose the tariffs, that'll be cheaper. But that is all up in the air. And so it's for that reason that these local industries, some are seeing such an influx in orders. The spike in new business reported by many American manufacturers coincides with a sharp decrease in Chinese manufacturing. When Trump announced the tariffs last month, he predicted American businesses and consumers would both benefit. Of course, he noted jobs and factories will come roaring back into this country, and you see it happening already, and that's true. He continued on, we will pry open foreign markets, break down foreign trade barriers, and ultimately, more production at home will mean stronger competition and lower prices for consumers. Now, while the president insists that eventually prices will fall, and we have seen prices falling, particularly when it comes to the grocery store and energy, some of the so-called experts and politicians warn that the tariffs could sharply raise costs for American consumers, according to CNBC. However, executives at Safe Source Direct, a Louisiana-based medical product facility, is saying otherwise, and I've somehow stapled the rest of the story elsewhere. But they push back on it, saying eventually this is going to work out, and we're going to see ultimately these prices lower because of the I read the article earlier this morning, so even though I don't have the back page of it, I remember what it was that they argued. That a lot of these facilities, in particular, some that may be moving from overseas, once they get here to the United States, and if they are needing to have any sort of, in all likelihood, infrastructure built, that is a time in which they are going to do it with upgraded technology, and it will be a more efficient workplace. And so that, as it almost always does, causes the prices to go down. This is about overall our economy being more stable. There, in any given circumstance, there will be some industries that the marketplace is not welcoming. And then there are going to be some industries in which the marketplace is very welcoming. And when you change relationships, you change the environment, you change the atmosphere, there are going to be some that were benefiting from the previous situation that may not benefit. Then there's going to be some that were struggling, and suddenly, like a number of these small businesses that are highlighted by the Wall Street Journal, suddenly they're going like gangbusters. And then you're going to have some industries that never existed at all in the United States, and all of a sudden they're going to start existing. There is this misleading sense that people have that Trump is trying to micromanage everything. And what he's really, truly, ultimately trying to do is by putting all these different countries on notice and allowing those countries come to the United States in order to offer up better deals for the United States, the economy overall is going to be stronger. That is what he's going for. And so while it is frustrating for me to hear people that sort of, demand, they don't demand, but there's this expectation that, well, what is he going to do with Sweden? What is he going to do with Japan? What is he going to do with China? What's the plan? And I think for a lot of people, it's unsatisfying to hear, well, the plan is just for things to get better. But that is the plan. And if you haven't noticed, Trump is pretty good at that. Trump has a history of entering into negotiations as the deal, art of the deal. That's what the art of the deal is all about. And this is an area in which Trump is really good. And I firmly believe, because of his resolve and his willingness to say, no, we're not going to do that. Trump is known, and he lays this out, part of being a successful deal maker is knowing when you will walk away, and the other side, knowing that you will walk away. And Trump has essentially made by default the walk-away position already known, and that's the tariffs. This is the across the board tariffs, and then hey, if this is the new normal, unless you want to work out a better deal, and if you don't want to, or if it's something that I don't believe is in the best interest of the United States, then I'm going to walk away, and then that puts us right where we are with the tariffs. And increasingly, these countries are recognizing that Trump's not going to back down on this, and that's all part of, I don't even want to say it's strategy, it's just him. Meanwhile, some of these people. Former Vice President Mike Pence said Monday on CNN's The Source that President Trump's tariffs hurts consumers who want cheap goods. Mike Pence is putting himself out there and being put up by CNN. Now, these Republicans that, particularly those that are more conservative like Mike Pence, that just get eviscerated by the media. The media lies about them. The media smears them. Outfits like CNN would mock Mike Pence because he wouldn't be alone in a room with a woman other than his wife. Trashed on him and his wife because of the Christian school that she worked on. But boy, now that he'll trash on Donald Trump, oh boy, they welcome him. And what does he do? He'll be more than happy to oblige. Some of these people, they just, it seems as if they develop reputations of being dignified and diplomatic, but then as soon as these people who lie and trash say, hey, you want to come over here and hang out with the cool kids? They're like, yeah, I want to be over there. So Mike Pence comes running. Pence said, I do have concerns that with the president's call for broad-based tariffs against friend and foe alike, that ultimately the administration is advancing policies that are not targeted at countries that have been abusing our trade relations, but rather essentially new industrial policy that will result in inflation that will harm consumers and ultimately harm the American economy. Caitlin Collins hosts one argument he's been making lately is that maybe children will have to make do with fewer dolls and fewer toys. Do you think the American people buy that argument? Pence said, I have two. So, now Trump's coming for your kids, see? Gonna ruin Christmas. Pence said, I have two grown daughters. I have three small grandchildren. And look, keeping dolls affordable, keeping our kids' toys affordable, it's really part of. Oh, just stop it. Jeez. Is there really, listen. I'm not going to pretend I'm an expert when it comes to the toy industry in the world. But they act like there's only 5 lines of toys out there. And if there are tariffs impacting some of the lines, then we vastly diminish the number of toys that are available for kids out there. Are you kidding me? I mean, it's like, there are this whole, there just aren't going to be enough toys for kids out there, and every single toy product is going to skyrocket in price, and people aren't going to be able to afford it. It's just insane. What world are you living in? Now, you remember whenever groceries were so high? We played audio of, I want to say it was a CNN story, about this mother who she had like 8 kids or 12 kids or something, and they're talking about the amount of milk that she goes through every week. And I mean, these people essentially accused her of lying, that nobody goes through that much milk, and well, why does she have so many kids? And we were hearing all these stories from the mainstream media about how, actually we're pretty gluttonous, so we don't need all of these things. All of the sudden, when it comes to toys, well, we just don't have enough of them for our kids, and Donald Trump's going to make it work. These people are so deplorable, so dishonest. And under the Biden administration, if you couldn't feed your kids or it was difficult to make ends meet when it came to the grocery store, well, just feed them less. Oh, but if children... instead of 30 different dolls, they only get 15. Oh, my goodness. Donald Trump is the worst human being ever. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. I just think people like Mike Pence, this is my personal assessment, that are on the receiving end of lies and mockery from a network like CNN that then sees him as a benefit because he'll trash on Donald Trump, want him to be an expert on their and he just comes running. And it's not about disagreement. I'm not one who believes, well, this network is this and I'm this, so I'm not going to go on that network. These are people that just lie. This is not a news network. This is an anti-Trump, anti-Republican propaganda machine. And to see some of these, like Mike Pence, who has been on the receiving end of it, and while Trump supporters defended him, well, Trump supporters would call out CNN for treating him unfairly, and then he can't run fast enough to get on their network to start trashing on Trump and by way of trashing on Trump, trashing on Trump supporters who defended him all those years. It's just same thing with people like John McCain and Mitt Romney. There's something that happens with these Republicans when they don't get their way, when it's like they feel this sense of entitlement to, let's not forget Mike Pence was running for president, and whenever the voters pick Donald Trump, or someone that's not them, or eventually someone like Donald Trump, it's as if they turn on the Trump voters. This how dare you mentality and attitude. And so then they're like, well, you know what I'll do? I'll just go on to CNN. All right, well, that's you. You do your thing. Got to get another traffic update. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. As Mike Pence and all liberals are out there pitching a fit about how not being able to purchase products from China means higher prices, can we just acknowledge the clear, obvious reality of this? And Donald Trump has now made the left in particular very pro-slavery. The reason that China, in so many of these instances, is able to have such cheap products like dolls because of slavery. Same sort of slavery we had in this country. People against their will forced to work for very little, if any, money, sometimes out of concentration camps. I mean, you can't have a more perfect contradiction than the left that loves to call Trump a Hitler and a Nazi and loves to trash on the United States of America because of slavery. And, oh, we were built on slavery. Oh, the history of slavery. Yet they are pitching a fit because they cannot benefit financially from slavery in China, or they're afraid that they won't be able to because of Trump tariffs. I mean, it's just so perfect. And these, some of these people are the same people that talk about reparations and, oh, white privilege. And, oh, we need to recognize that as white people, we're privileged because of slavery in this country. But then they are defending the status quo with China because they are able to purchase cheaper products because of slavery. By the way, that was the same argument that we used in this country for slavery, too. The products are cheaper. So congratulations. We've got news coming up in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. Springfield's Talk 1041. Hey, everybody, how's it going? My name is Nick Reed. Great Escape, open for business reservations. You can make yours today. All-inclusive trip as we do the show live down in Cancun. The Kugelman Resort, Resort there. It is a newer resort built in and open in 2022. It's a new one for us as well, November 9th through the 15th. And final payment's not due until July. You can join us for under $2,000 a person. That's all inclusive. That's the flight. That's 6 nights. That's the food. That's the beverages. That's everything you can imagine. And all the fun. All of the fun as well. Details at ksgf.com. Every year this Met Gala thing comes back around, the more just vile I find these people to be. Not because they're really rich and just live a lifestyle. They'll be wearing a dress that is more than the average annual income. Not because of that, but because of their elite attitude. And so many of these people whine and complain about how hard they have it in life. It's just disgusting. You know what the theme was this year? Black dandies. Black dandies. This is in reference to the post-slavery era in which black people in the United States would take on sort of as a sense of identification and to demonstrate, hey, we're not identified as slaves any longer. They would really dress up fancy in sort of a European way in order to distinguish themselves. And so that's what a dandy or a black dandy, black people specifically in the U.S., that would mimic that particular sort of style.
Did you see what Eric Adam wore? He wore a bedazzled suit that said "End Gun Violence" on the back.
Oh, that's all it takes? Oh, another very meaningful step forward.
All
I know.
right.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. New York City's now safe.
That's right, I
We've
guess.
ended it.
But at least he's doing something.
That's right.
He's doing something. He's sending a message. Oh, is what the left loves to do. Send a message. Doesn't do anything. It's meaningless in terms of actual results. But look at me. Virtue signal. Kamala Harris was there.
Okay.
I mean, these folks that I love, they sit around, Democrats, and wring their hands over, how is it that we can reconnect with the working person? And then, I know, let's go to the Met Gala. Let's make a big showing there. Where, I can have a clutch that is more than the average person's car in cost. That's really going to help us reconnect with all of these different voters that increasingly have felt as if we don't necessarily represent the working man. Gee, I wonder why. But just look at your behavior. Look at the people you choose to spend your time with. Look at the people whose mindset you share. And it's not about money. That's not what this is about. Yes, many of these people do have tremendous amounts of money, while, acting as if middle-class America needs to do more in terms of taxes and so there's that appalling factor of it. But it's not the money factor. It's this elitist attitude. For example, Ocasio-Cortez was there. She took time off her oligarchy tour to go to the Met Gala. She and Bernie Sanders, which most of their supporters don't even really know what they're talking about when they talk about oligarchy, but all that, it's rich people. It's just railing on rich people. And this is a thing that is just so crazy about their followers, which they do act like cult followers. They will sit there and applaud somebody like Ocasio-Cortez for railing on the rich, for going out there and say, yeah, we need to really make them pay. And then they'll just talk about how wonderful she looks at this event that only the uber wealthy that's all. It's just for the uber rich. The willingness of some people to be treated like dopes, to be treated like ignorant pawns, where the people like Ocasio-Cortez, they know that they can go out there and rail on rich people and then just without any sort of sense of shame, go show, oh yeah, these are my people. I'm going to go hang out with them. Oh, I'm going to walk the red carpet. I'm going to have my pictures taken with all of these multi-billionaire people, part of these billionaire industries. It's like no level of respect for the supporters, these supporters of hers. Al Sharpton, probably the most, in terms of results, successful anti-Semite that is still allowed in media today. He was there. Stop hate against Jews. Well, except for Al. Good old Al. This is a guy that led riots that resulted in Jews dying in New York. The riots led against Jews. On a network, MSNBC, that accuses the Trump administration of being anti-Semitic. It is, the visuals of it is so Hunger Games. These opulent, elite people that look down on the rest of us and scold the rest of us because, we don't live our lives the way that they think that we should. It's just, and no shame about it whatsoever. No shame. I'm watching they've got clips of it running on the networks, the monitors we have here in the studio, and the theme is Black Dandy, and so of course they're showing all of these uber wealthy, multi-millionaire. I'm sure most of, probably all of them that they're showing are multi-millionaires because a lot of entertainers, black, all dressed up, designer outfits. And I'm the privileged one because I'm white. It's like reality is totally suspended. These people will run around complaining about how awful they have it in this country. What a racist country this is. I don't think so. If this country were as racist as you want to portray it, I don't think that you would be on the red carpet, wearing designer clothes, making multi-million-dollar, people begging for your autograph, wanting to be in your good graces, telling you how wonderful you are, heaping praise upon you. That's not how racism works. It's in this environment people like Michelle Obama complain about how horrible people of color have it in this country. Just spoiled, ungrateful people. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see partly sunny skies with a high near 74. Tonight mostly cloudy and then a chance for thunderstorms mainly after 4 a.m. with a low around 55. For your Wednesday, showers and thunderstorms will continue throughout the day with a high near 66. And looking ahead to Thursday, mostly cloudy in the morning and then a 70% chance for rain in the afternoon with a high near 68.
For your premier landscaping services in Ozark, whether you are a homeowner or business owner, Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor landscaping, outdoor living space design. They do the full designing as well. It's not simply, all right, 10 by 12 feet. Now we're going to go get some pavers and we'll lay it down for you. And ta-da, we're done in 2 days. No, we're talking about area of expertise, outdoor living space design, whether you want something just simple or you want to accommodate others. You want it for yourself, or you want to have the ambiance of music and lighting, and it can make it as full Met Gala style as you want it, or as simple as you want it. Drainage solutions, landscape lighting, Hunter Hardscape and Outdoor, and so much more, and comprehensive property maintenance services as well. This is particularly valuable, again, if you are a business owner, but like me as a homeowner as well, taking some of that outdoor space and making it a living area. It's just like adding another room to your home, but it's outside. Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor. You can find them at hunterhardscapes.com, ksgf.com, Nick's endorsements. I want to say it was a couple of weeks ago, Pete Buttigieg was out there talking about adoption, and he referenced the fact that you can get black babies at a discount, which is sort of a weird comment. And he said that while he suggested that adopting white children involve a list and a deposit on a fetus, while implying black children are adopted at a discount, like they're in the bargain bin or something. This is how Pete Buttigieg sees black babies. Buttigieg said on Flagrant, a podcast hosted by comedian Andrew Schultz, anyone who says race is not a thing in this country should experience an adoption process where there are literally different lists if you say you want a white kid only versus if you say that didn't matter. Literally a different list. The list for white kid only is longer. And not only that, there was actually a discount. Or you didn't have to pay a deposit on the fees. That is like how it works. I couldn't believe it. Well, apparently Pete Buttigieg is, as usual, completely wrong. There is a response to his comment that you can get black babies at a discount by the president of the National Council for Adoption. And I thought, well, this would be interesting to hear. Many of us aren't familiar with the adoption process, and here you have what many people believe could very well be, and it was in the past, a presidential contender claiming that in America you can buy black babies cheaper than white ones. Ryan Hanlon writes that former Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg recently sparked a conversation about adoption with comments that described a list for white kids and paying a deposit on a fetus. While he offered some thoughtful reflection on parenting, these particular remarks and the media response they generated highlight a dangerous trend. The use of adoption as a proxy in broader cultural battles, often without context or accuracy. As someone who's worked with hundreds of adoption agencies and professionals across the country for decades, I can confidently say that these terms misrepresent how private adoption works. More importantly, when media narratives confuse or conflate key facts, the real harm falls on children and families. Now, if you haven't picked up on it, this is going to be very shocking, but a lot of this is correcting the record that is confusing for a lot of people because of disinformation by the media and Pete Buttigieg. One of the most common forms of misinformation happens when conflating private domestic adoption with statistics from the U.S. foster care system. This conflation leads to false conclusions about racial disparities. Private domestic adoption, which typically involves the voluntary placement of infants by their birth parents, is a fundamentally different system from foster care where children are placed due to abuse, neglect, or other issues. The motivations, processes, and challenges differ profoundly between the two. Using data or dynamics from the foster care system to critique private adoption is not only misleading, it's comparing apples to oranges. Even more concerning are recent assertions that some adoption agencies have begun to lower the cost associated with adopting black babies. This is an unfounded and damaging claim. No credible agency bases its fees on the race of a child. To suggest otherwise is to malign the ethical professionals who work tirelessly to ensure every child is placed in a loving home. The comments by Buttigieg demonstrate ignorance on two essential aspects of private domestic adoption. First, in most cases, birth parents are choosing the adoptive parents. And second, there are far more hopeful adoptive parents waiting than there are newborns placed for adoption each year. Both of these points are worth a brief examination. Adoption has changed dramatically in the last few decades, from past practices where expectant mothers had very little, if any, role in choosing the adoptive parents and even whether or not to place the child for adoption. Historically, her parents or other authority figures often made those decisions. That has shifted dramatically, with most moms now choosing the adoptive parents and usually maintaining a relationship with their child and the adoptive family after the placement, otherwise known as an open adoption. For mothers who do place for adoption, fewer than 1/3 say that race is even an important factor in choosing adoptive parents. But for those who want, they can factor racial consideration or any other preferences into their decision making. And I can tell you, and this isn't going to be a shock for a lot of you, it isn't white parents that usually care about the race of the adoptive parents. In the U.S., only about 25,000 private domestic adoptions happen every year, yet hundreds of thousands of parents would be thrilled to grow their families this way. Because of this mismatch, there is no shortage of qualified families who are eager to adopt children of any race, ethnicity, and other attributes. These two factors, the birth parents being in the decision-making role of choosing the adoptive parents, coupled with the overabundance of hopeful adoptive parents relative to the number of newborns placed, create a dynamic in which birth parents can be choosy about who they want to be the parent for their child. It also means that adoption agencies would have no reason or incentive to charge less money for the placement of a black child. It is true that private domestic adoption, like all aspects of child welfare, faces real challenges, ranging from inconsistent pre- and post-adoption support to the need for stronger oversight and accountability. There is an essential place for conversations about race in adoption as well. Constructive criticism is welcome and necessary, and reform efforts are needed. For example, the Federal Trade Commission recently sent warning letters to 31 entities suspected of predatory practices such as misleading adoptive parents about the success rate and suppressing negative reviews online. Such actions deserve public scrutiny and reform. But reform has to begin with facts, not fiction. Mischaracterizations and sensational headlines about racial adoption lists both distract from real problems and stigmatize the people who have navigated the adoption process with good faith and integrity. Reducing adoption to a subject for culture war shorthand risks alienating families who deserve understanding and support. If we want to improve adoption in the U.S., we must pursue thoughtful, informed dialogue grounded in reality, not rhetoric. The lives and futures of children and families are too meaningful for anything less. Again, that's Ryan Harlan, president of the National Council for Adoption, correcting the disinformation campaign the media ran with after Pete Buttigieg falsely claimed that you can adopt black babies at a discounted rate. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Great Escape 2025 open for business, KSGF.com. Beautiful Cancun in November, 9th through the 15th. Just under $2,000 a person, junior suites, garden view, and that is going to cover the entire trip. You're talking about the airfare, you're talking about the taxes, you're talking about the food, you're talking about the experience, you're talking about transportation from the airport to the resort. We'll all go together in that way, and then once we get there, you're off to do what you want, hang out with us, or be there as we do the show, or just go off on your own, explore Mexico if you want, the beautiful Cancun if you want to. The resort that we've got our junior suite reservations at. That is a resort that just opened a couple of years ago, so it's a brand new resort, and we're just really looking forward to it. Final payment is not due until July, so you can put down your deposit now, spread out your payments over the next couple of months, and then come November, it'll just almost feel like it's not costing you a single thing. That money guilt thing, that budgeting. Have you ever done a vacation like that? All right, well, we can spend $112 every day. We have this one. You don't have to worry about any of that. 2025 Great Escape. The details, including how to get signed up at ksgf.com.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see partly sunny skies throughout the day with a high near 74. Tonight mostly cloudy, and then we'll see a chance for thunderstorms mainly after 4 a.m. with a low around 55. Those showers and thunderstorms will continue throughout the day on Wednesday with a high near 66. And looking ahead to Thursday, mostly cloudy in the morning, and then we'll see a 70% chance for rain in the afternoon with a high near 68.
The end of last week, I reached out to the Lieutenant Governor's office asking if he could come on the program because I had observed a posting on social media in which he was expressing frustration as to how, and he can best characterize this, but this is what I inferred, how it was that specifically in the Senate, in the Missouri Senate, all of the what would be considered conservative values that voters expected, how they just weren't happening, and his level of frustration with that. And he has indicated that he is looking to be more involved in the activities in the Senate in order to presumably make some of these things happen to move forward. And you've got pushback. State Senator Cindy O'Loughlin. I think it's fair to characterize it almost as a little bit of a mocking tone to it, but we've got the Lieutenant Governor Wassinger with us this morning. Thank you for being with us. I hope I didn't mischaracterize anything. That was my inference from it. I thought, this is a complaint I've had for a long time. I remember, I think it was the beginning of this session, I heard, I don't even know who it was, but it was somebody talking about how this was the session that meaningful school choice was going to occur, and I did genuinely laugh out loud because I thought, okay, this will be it just seems like the conservative results never actually occur in any real meaningful way, yet we have no trouble raising taxes, expanding government. And so when I saw your comments, I thought, well, this is good to hear that somebody else may see things the way that I do, who's in a position of power. And so thank you for being with us, and just give us your thoughts on that and what it is that you are looking to do in your position as lieutenant governor in order to perhaps change the way that the Senate operates.
Okay, first, thanks for having me on. And by the way, Mother's Day is this weekend. I want to remind everybody of that because I got it on my notes. So I want to wish everybody a happy Mother's Day. There's not a more important job in the world than being a mom. So I encourage people to make sure you don't forget to buy your flowers. It's on Mother's Day. But yeah, Nick. So I am new to this job. I have never held elective office before. I ran as a conservative outsider to shake things up in Jefferson City. Because I was frustrated, frankly, as you outlined, that we never get anything done in the state legislature. And you don't need to look any further than the Missouri Constitution. The Missouri Constitution is probably 50 times longer than the United States Constitution. And if you look what we passed, there were 8 constitutional amendments just last November on the ballot. But some things, whether you're for or against them, marijuana, online gaming, online betting, these are now embedded in the Missouri Constitution. Those should be in the state statute, and the reason they're not is because the Missouri legislature is totally ineffective and doesn't get things done. I gave this job 100 days. I didn't want to come in and, just tell everybody. So I put on my calendar, let's let this process roll out for 100 days, see if I'm missing something. But here, give you an example, Nick. A week ago, Tuesday, so I preside over the Missouri State Senate as Missouri Lieutenant Governor. Each day you approve what's called a journal or the minutes. Like if you were in a meeting, we approve the minutes from the day before. So the minutes will read, President Wassinger presiding. Okay, that's yours truly, Lieutenant Governor. They debated for 2.5 hours whether it should be President Wassinger presiding or President David Wassinger presiding. So that is what you incur every day in the Missouri State Senate. And they just don't move these, let me give you some low-hanging fruit that we should get done. DEI, there's just apples waiting to be picked on these big conservative issues, and they're just not getting done. So what these left-wing billionaires have noted that, and they've put in, we were a pro-life state. As of last November, they passed Amendment 3, which we're now a pro-abortion state. So now the legislature is trying to get that undone next week, which they may be successful in getting it back on the ballot where you have to vote again, but it won't be done. So we'll be a pro-abortion state for a while. But they will then, after the conclusion of the session, assuming they even get Amendment 3, run around and get their Legislator of the Year awards. Well, we're just getting back to ground zero and not moving Missouri forward.
We're talking with Lieutenant Governor Wassinger. Listen, I get it. I understand if you are somebody who is part of the establishment and you've been in there and you've learned the rules. And this is part of what Cindy O'Loughlin, and she made a post on social media essentially saying, listen, Lieutenant Governor, he doesn't get it. This is a very difficult place to navigate. And, yes, he wants to make things better, but who doesn't? It just doesn't work that way. And I get that there are realities about how, quote, these things run. But it just seems to me that it's this continuing attitude of, well, that means we can't change it. that this is a way that's always been done, and we've had to deal with this system, and you can't just come along and try to make it better. We have to continue to do things the way that we've always done it. And I think that's what a lot of people, without even necessarily knowing what the nuances are here, they're just tired of that sort of attitude from the establishment that this is the way we've always done it. Don't come in and try to improve things.
Nick, you've hit it. I've got a sign on actually, it's on my desk at the office. If you or your listeners come visit me, there's a sign, because that is the most common answer, is because, why do we do this? Because we've always done it this way. Well, why have we always done it this way? You know what? That's a good question. I don't know how we've done it this way. Why? And so I have a sign literally sitting on my desk that has, we've always done it this way, with a X across it, like do not say that answer in my office. And the other thing you get is these career politicians. These are, they're the ruling class. They know better than the guy, in Ozark, Missouri. They know better than, they just don't know how things work around here. We know better than them. So if you're in there long enough, you kind of get this elitist ruling class and mentality where, these folks in the Capitol, those people, they really don't understand how things work around here. It's just this ruling, demeaning, arrogant, condescending attitude that you see that in Washington, D.C., and you'll also see that in Jefferson City.
I understand and appreciate how it is that some of these people who run, they get elected and they, are going to get in there and we're going to change things, make it for the better, and they get beat down. And she essentially says that in her piece. She says that every one of us came to the Senate with the belief that we know how things should be done and what the results will be once we provide our wisdom. This belief disappears after you get trounced a few times, and believe me, this will happen. It just seems like such a defeatist. I mean, it's like, and then she says at the end, lesson 1, develop a personal relationship. This is sort of a message to you or anyone who wants to be disruptive. Develop a personal relationship with each senator and offer to help navigate what is an extremely complicated system. This is how you get something done. Ultimately, it's the only way. In a state that voted so overwhelmingly for Donald Trump, someone who refuses to do things the way that it's always been done because that's the only way to do it, it just seems as if there's such a detachment between some Missouri elected Republicans and what it is that Republican voters have overwhelmingly shown that they want when it comes to Republican leadership. And to me, this just smacks of it.
Well, again, I ran as an conservative outsider to shake things up. I'm from Hannibal, Missouri, so I wanted to bring my values of faith, family, and frankly, common sense to the lieutenant governor's office. But this is a swamp. They are vicious. I mean, they fight back.
Yeah.
So they will beat you down. You've seen what they did to Trump. So President Trump endorsed me to be Missouri lieutenant governor. I think he viewed me as a fighter who will fight but they fight back. The swamp, these lobbyists, special interests, the insiders, they're making a lot of money. The guy in Ozark, Missouri, who's working his tail off may not be, these guys are making lots and lots of money. Last week, they had a budget bill in the dark of night, over 230 earmarks put on these bills, tens and tens of millions of dollars in the cloak of darkness where they're ramming these special projects, Juneteenth celebrations, funding NPR. They're doing this in the cloak of darkness. And, they don't like me calling it out, and they're going to fight back. So, by the way, when your listeners read all the fake news about me, remember what they did to Trump. So if you try to shake it up a little bit, they will come after you.
We're talking with Lieutenant Governor Watzinger, and you mentioned about how brutal they can be and that they will come after you. O'Loughlin, she says as much, and I'll reread. This is from her posting, talking about those people who want to get in there and improve things. And she said, this belief disappears after you get trounced a few times. Believe me, this will happen. So she not only doesn't deny it, but just sort of presents it as this reality. And again, I get that this is the reality that I'll give her the benefit of the doubt, has learned to operate within. It's also one of the reasons I think so many people, whether they're Americans or they're Missourians, just lose faith in elected officials because they go in talking about all of this change that they're going to do and that they are going to work on behalf of the constituents. But by the end, they're telling the newcomers, sit down, shut up. You don't know how it is. You got to learn, just like I did, that all of these promises you made, it's not going to happen. And so you just have to, just play the game. And it's sad because that's why a lot of people just say, what's the point?
Yeah, Nick. So what they'll do is, so I wanted to, not even, I have asked for ideas, see if they'll engage in the discussion about how we can, they refuse to engage in discussion about how we can revise these rules. And what they'll do, they'll prohibit me from using the Senate staff. So these folks in leadership say you cannot deal with David. So they'll begin, they'll probably look at our budget, try to cut our budget. They'll do, try to leak stories about, these people are vicious.
Yeah.
They don't. I have it when they come. They're supposed to give me a script when, give an idea what's coming up that day when I preside over. They'll stop giving me scripts. These people are vicious, and you have to be a fighter in order to take on. You've seen what Trump has been up against. I mean, these people do not want change. This Jefferson City has been run by these lobbyists and special interests for years, and they don't want an outsider coming in to shake things up. And so that's you're starting to see some of that pushback.
In my mind, I keep hearing the phrase, who do you think you are? And that's what it feels that is the atmosphere aimed at somebody like you, who is saying, hey, we can improve things, we can do things better. Just this sort of like, well, who do you think you are? Like, we've run this country club for a while, we've paid our dues, you're some newcomer that has come in, and all of a sudden you want to change the way that we do things. And I get that human reaction, and it's a cultural problem, I think, that, like I said, I understand how people get sucked under, but it's also at the same time, I think people who get sucked under, they have to understand that's why so many people lose faith in the people, and they eventually tune candidates out, because all Republican candidates say the same thing, at least in this part of the state of Missouri, when it comes to the primaries, that they're the conservative, they're the ones that's for smaller guys. And it's like, yeah, we've heard this 1,000 times, and then you turn into someone that tells somebody else, nope, that's not the way it's done. You have to learn like I did. It's just, I mean, I feel like I'm apologizing, being somewhat repetitive at this point.
On.
It's just frustrating for me as a voter, so I can only imagine what it's like for you. You go in there, and the way that I'm sure it's not a comfortable situation, and you're going in trying to do what it is that you ran to do and got elected to do, and dealing with within your own party. I mean, it's not like the Democrats are in charge. You could understand that, but it was within your own party trying to prevent this from, these improvements from occurring.
But I want what emboldens me is I get so many requests and thanks from the grassroots. And if you can keep me in your prayers, I actually feel prayers, and the grassroots just, love this stuff. And don't lose faith. There are a few state senators that have come in and recognize it is a totally dysfunctional body, and they want to sit down. We frankly probably need to get some new senators in before anything gets done. So this is a question, you may want to ask, or call your state senator and ask them where they are on this. Or if you see them out, at the grocery store at a Lincoln Days event, ask them if they're in favor of changing the rules. And if they're not, frankly, they need to take a hard look in the mirror.
Well, I know a lot of our listeners are somewhat familiar with this feeling, given that Mike Moon is a state senator that represents much of the listening area and the treatment he has received from the establishment. So listeners in this area are pretty accustomed to hearing from some of these few elected Republicans that are pushing back against the establishment. Well, I just want one last question. So I know you have said, listen, we need to do so. We need to put some new rules into effect here in order to make things run more efficiently and so that we can have better outcomes. And it appears as if the answer is no, we're not going to. So what happens now?
Well, you say that. So what? Senator Moon was one of the. I'm going to call him out. He's one of the senators that came into my office yesterday. So he recognizes the need for change.
Yeah.
So again, I'm not a voice in the wilderness. Is it going to happen overnight? It's really your listeners and your voters. They need to pin these career politicians down. And I'm just a voice, as I say, for the forgotten man and woman in Missouri. I'm not a voice for the lobbyist and special interest. So God has blessed me, along with Missourians, with a platform, to voice these concerns. But really, it's the voters and we, the people, that need to get out and get these career politicians either on board or out. And I appreciate Senator Moon coming in yesterday. We've had a few other state senators recognize this body's dysfunctional. So we really need your listeners and your voters to get out, really ask these state senators if they think the state Senate is being functional. I think probably it's a 95% issue, probably, where it is not functional. And if you think this is a functioning body, you've probably been in there too long, or you're a lobbyist or special interest.
Missouri Lieutenant Governor Wassinger, thank you. Appreciate your time this morning. And next time you're in Springfield, stop by.
I'm going to buy you breakfast at Scrambler's Restaurant if you'll be me. Hey, as soon as this gets done, guess where I'm headed? In 2 weeks. I'm headed to Springfield, Missouri, literally the Monday after I get done with this legislative session. So that'll be in 2 weeks, and I can't tell you how much I want to get down to Springfield and get out of this swamp. So look forward to seeing you.
All right. Good luck. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Nick. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now. Springfield Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Again, thank the Lieutenant Governor for joining us. And the other side of this conflict, if you will, is somewhat represented by Senator Cindy O'Loughlin, because she's posted on social media a response to much of what he's doing. And this isn't about good guy, bad guy. I don't know that I've ever even met O'Loughlin, so I can't tell you motivation. I understand. I don't know going in what her attitude was, but I recognize how people that go in wanting to make positive change and campaigning on it, right? I mean, they campaign, we're going to change, and after a few years, they're the ones stopping the change. No, this is the way it's done. This is the only way you can do it. And that's what her argument is in her posting, that you will get smacked down, and that you have to, it's all about who you know, personal relationships, and that's the only way you're going to get something done. I'm not unrealistic in understanding that's human nature. Any organization that you have, when somebody new comes in, any business, I mean, if you've ever worked for a company and you have somebody come in and they're talking about all these great new things, they're going to change the way things are done. Usually about 80% of the people have a problem with it. Because who are you? You don't know how things are done here. But the one thing I can tell you is the perception from people, it's just, what's the point? When they see that there is this resignation to the way that this is just how it is, so don't even try. It's very deflating, and it causes people to disengage. And I would like to think that for any elected official, if you take a moment and reflect on the fact that you make voters just say, what's the point? That your presentation is one that makes voters not want to participate and think it really doesn't matter whether, who's in charge, because they're all just going to say this is the way it is. That should be very disheartening to the lawmaker if they're in there for the right reason, to make the people lose faith. And it's also the attitude that is how Donald Trump became not only so popular, but ended up overwhelmingly winning the last election, because people are tired of that defeatist attitude of, nope, you can't do it that way. There's only one way to do it, and this is it. If anyone is the antithesis of that, it's Donald Trump. And again, in a state like Missouri, where he so overwhelmingly won, yet you have Republicans who are in charge in many instances like this that are the opposite of what it is that people have demonstrated they want through their vote for Donald Trump. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Pinnaker Honda, the brand new facility, showroom floor, and new service area officially open, doing business. Big grand opening stuff, additional $1,000 towards your trade on select retailable vehicles. Of course, they'll have all the details for that. So you look at it this way: whatever your trade in value, slap an extra $1,000 on it. In some of those instances, you can just stop by there. They're great folks over there. Right now, leasing-wise, 2025 Honda HR-V, $199 a month. Same for a new Civic, $199 a month lease, and free fuel for the summer when you purchase a new vehicle at Pinnaker Honda. So that's not a bad deal as well. So just swing on over there. South Campbell. On Fridays, they have food trucks as well, something to keep in mind. If perhaps your lunch break is the easiest time to check out what could be your next new vehicle, you can have lunch while you're there also. That is Pinnaker Honda, South Campbell, just south of Walnut Lawn. If you miss any of the program, any of the 2 hours that we're just wrapping up here, of course, podcast form will be up at ksgf.com, Spotify, iTunes. We still have another hour ahead. And we'll, of course, always stream that at ksgf.com as well. News in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. Springfield's Talk 1041, and good day, everyone. How do you do? Text on the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. I know that was Lieutenant Governor. That's whom I was speaking with in the previous hour. But I'm just curious, has there been any word on Governor Keogh's campaign promise to lower taxes and cut the income tax? Just wondering, I haven't heard a peep. Yeah, one of the promises, what was that?
I just said, maybe I'll email him.
Yeah, what happened to that campaign promise? So that was part of what he campaigned on, eliminating the income. In fact, there were independent ads running of some PAC, or I don't even remember. It wasn't his campaign, but running saying that Kehoe is going to eliminate state income taxes. And it wasn't anything I heard him talking about. Not that I was following him every campaign stop, but I thought that's a pretty radical thing to say you're going to do, but also not really lead with it in some capacity or make it part of your theme. And so I had reached out to someone from his campaign. They said, yeah, that's what he's going to do. So what I have been told is that and I know for a lot of you it's going to be like, well, this sounds pretty typical, but I've been told that this session has been one in which they have been, the people who are supportive of it, developing it, working out the details, and the idea is that it will be ready to go out of the gate next session. Now, I know for a lot of you instinctively are dismissive of that because the Republican Party is very good about promising to do something and then saying, well, we'll do it next time. We'll do it next time, especially in Missouri. I do know some of the people who are involved that really genuinely, truly are wanting to and intent on making it happen. But again, the establishment wing of the Republican Party in Missouri is probably going to be the biggest obstacle. So that is last I was told where things are, and that is what the expectation is of those who do want it to happen, and that is that this session is about them laying the groundwork, and that way they can have as many of the obstacles out of the way come the beginning of the next session. Okay? All right, we got weather coming up in a moment. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see partly sunny skies with a high near 74. Tonight mostly cloudy and then a chance for thunderstorms mainly after 4 a.m. with a low around 55. Those showers and thunderstorms will continue throughout the day on Wednesday with a high near 66. And looking ahead to Thursday, mostly cloudy in the morning and then a 70% chance for rain in the afternoon with a high near 68.
Hey everyone, it's Angela Romine.
Good morning.
How are you?
Fantastic. Always happy to be here.
Yeah, well, it's good to have you here. We're just off air talking about back when we were kids, how different things were, and young people, the driving thing. It's just increasingly young people are scared.
Yes.
I do think some of it also. Everyone's picking up mid-conversation here. They're like, we were talking about this during the commercial break, but I'm just going to continue the conversation
Yeah.
before we get to the stuff you actually came here to talk about.
I always love talking to you anyway.
Thank you. But I do also understand that younger people are able to communicate with each other in ways that a lot of us weren't. So when you turn 16, having a car, like that was the only way to really get out of the house and do things. And now people communicate just differently. I don't think it's better necessarily,
Right.
but if you wanted to hang out with, I mean, you had to go do that. You could talk
Right.
on the phone, but it wasn't like, it's just different. You couldn't group chat. None of that stuff occurred.
And I also wonder how much of it is like you're killing the environment by driving your car, and you'll own nothing and be happy.
Right.
Kind of
Yeah. I
attitude,
think
right?
there's some
Like,
of it.
oh, I have to pay this and I have to pay that, and it's just better just to Uber.
Yeah, and I think at the same time it's just increasingly, and I've heard this from parents that they say that their kid they're too scared to drive. I think about, and I know that I'm not alone in this. People listening probably it resonates with them. The relatively fearless and dumb things that we did as kids. It was like that is part of being young. You're supposed to be dumb and do things that are dangerous.
Right? You're testing the limits.
Right. I mean,
The limits and boundaries in your home, the limits and boundaries and the things you can and cannot do.
I remember one of my best friends literally falling out of the back of a pickup truck that we were, and then telling his parents that he fell rock climbing because he knew he'd be in trouble. And it was just, we had a group of buddies, and it was very clear it was not rock climbing. I mean, it was very, very clear. But we were always just things, and you look back and you think, oh my gosh, no wonder thank goodness my parents didn't know I was doing this stuff.
Even still, like, I grew up in the time where you didn't have seatbelts and you could ride in the back.
Down the highway.
My parents had a truck, and me and my
Yes.
sister were in the back, rain, shine, cold, it didn't matter. We were out there in the back, not being tied down or anything.
When the girl child was, I don't know, maybe first or second grade, and she and my nephew were headed to, I think it was a estate sale. Family member had died over in Dent County. And I was driving the pickup truck. It was, at that time, I had a 85 Dodge Dakota. And I was talking about, how when I was a kid, we would ride in the back of the pickup truck. And naturally, she's a pretty curious girl. She says, well, how come that doesn't, people, I don't see that. Why doesn't that happen? And I just remember this was the first time I was like, because of government.
Yep.
I was able to, because government screwed it up. That's why government won't let you. But I did on one occasion, just around our neighborhood, I let her get in the back of the truck, and when she was little, and just drove her. Yeah, drove around. Just and our street doesn't have much traffic at all, and so I let her ride in the back so she could at least have that experience. And I mentioned also earlier, and someone made a point of this. It was a reel on social media, and I thought that's actually true, and noted how so many of us, if you look at pictures back when we were kids, virtually, particularly in summertime, it seemed like there was always somebody with a cast on. You just don't see that anymore.
No.
It's like because kids aren't out riding bikes and jumping off things, and like no broken bones. I that would be an interesting statistic. What was the percentage of kids under the age of 16 that broke bones playing or just doing whatever, versus what it is today? I bet it's vastly different.
Probably the only ones are the ones that are play sports.
Yeah. And they even have wussified that up to a large degree. Now, you're not here to talk about this. We've got Angela Romine with us, but there's an incredible event coming up.
Yes, I know this is early, but I just wanted to get people to put it on their calendars. June 7th, it's a Saturday from 9 a.m. to 2:30. We're going to be doing a celebration, celebrating Life Month, equipping the culture to protect the innocent. And we're going to have special speakers from the Pregnancy Care Center, Back on Track, Abolish Abortion Missouri, and Senator Mike Moon will be coming to speak. And then we're also going to have a special presentation from people in the White Rose Resistance, because we're launching a White Rose Resistance unit at Calvary Chapel Springfield. It's open to the public. It's not a Calvary Chapel only specific thing. So,
And what is it?
when is it?
No, what is
What
it?
is
The White
the
Rose
White
Resistance.
Rose Resistance? That is a Seth Gruber. It is a pro-life organization, and they're trying to awaken the American church to fight the culture war today regarding life specifically. It says it's our goal to equip people to rise up to change the culture of death that is so prevalent in our country today. So there's training involved. We meet once a month on a Saturday. So if you're interested in any of that, you know how to reach me.
Yes. Well, and this is very important. I think that that simply because Roe v. Wade was overturned,
Correct.
there was this belief that that meant abortion would stop, and that's not the case. And then Missouri, of course, has gone from the most pro-life state, arguably, to the most pro-abortion state.
I know. Gosh, I keep
I mean, it's just insane.
attacking that on Facebook because they keep telling me the majority of Missouri voted for it, and I'm like, but when you look at the whole map,
Right.
most of the map voted no. Only very few pockets voted it through. So it's
And even aside from that, there was a period of time in which if slavery was put to a vote, a majority of people
yeah.
would have supported that too. That doesn't mean it's right.
correct.
And so, but I'm a very big believer in some people are like, well, we should use the law. And others like, no, we have to change hearts and minds. I think that it is important to change hearts and minds, but I also think that it should be illegal to kill people.
Right.
And so, I've got in both camps there. That's just me.
I totally agree. But so one of the things that the White Rose Resistance is trying to do, along with other organizations, is to turn June month into Life Month instead of the other month that gets celebrated all over the place. So this is one thing that we can do, and we're going to see if we can make, depending how well this does, we'll make it an annual. Oh, there will be a movie. The 1916 Project will be screened that day, and we'll have a couple of food trucks for lunch, or there's little restaurants around the area to eat too.
Is there RSVP?
There's no tickets needed, but we do ask for registration just to see how many people, because we can only hold so many people in our church.
All right, and do that.
Well, there's a QR code here on my.
Well, we
Well,
can
there.
we can get that on social media.
I
Is that
believe
right?
so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can do that,
Perfect.
so
Thank
people
you.
will
Yeah.
do that. All right. Anything else we're missing out of that?
No, I think
Okay.
that's it.
All right. Well, it's always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
And then a good chance we'll see you Friday. I know at Scramblers you're there quite often.
I know. I missed
The crew.
last Friday. I always feel like that's the only time I think I have FOMO is
Oh,
I'm like, there's so many good conversations in that little corner. I'm like, I'm missing out so many.
I never know
What's
who's over
happening?
I'll be like, oh, there's Angela, Lori Rose, Dr. M. Like just go down the Karen. There's a standard crew
Yes.
that's there, and yes, you are usually one of them.
I love it.
All right. Well, maybe we'll see you.
Yes, I will
Friday
be
then.
there this Friday.
Angela Romine, everyone. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. Over the weekend, I had the windows open. At one point, I had the AC on, and then I had the heat on in the evening. If you went through that same routine, but instead of enjoying cool air, or you're hoping to warm up your house and instead nothing, I want to recommend Russell and his team over at Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. Now, the Foreman team, they have been providing top-notch quality HVAC work across the Ozarks for over 35 years now. They do residential, commercial, and they have a 24/7 emergency line because they know that emergencies don't just happen between the 8 to 5 hours. So whether it's time for that AC tune-up or you need to schedule that annual service repair, call Russell and his team today. Now, you can find all of the contact information for Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at KSGF.com.
Yeah, you're right. Kamala's dress at the Met Gala looked ugly.
Wasn't it gaudy?
She looks like a black and white cookie.
It's awful. And it had...
You pay $75,000
Right.
to get to an event, and that's what you wear?
And it really
She's giving
had
Joe
some
Biden a run
promise.
for her money.
Yeah, it really had some promise, but I don't know. It's just... It's not great.
I love some of the comments that are being made.
Oh, yeah?
One post says, not even pretending to be in touch with everyday Americans I see. Another, I can smell the vodka on her from here.
Read a New York Post article that said that she kind of dipped out of the gala early. Why, you may ask? To go to a bar.
Yeah, that's what this story, the Polo Bar. Well, they made an appearance at the Polo Bar ahead of the event.
Oh,
and then
okay,
apparently,
maybe I read it backwards.
Oh, well, they could have gone afterwards as well. Now, no word on whether or not he beat her while waiting for the valet to bring the vehicle.
You never know.
Because, he's known for that. Classy guy that he is. Over on MSNBC, I just love this. They had to issue a correction. They, I guess this was yesterday, clarified that on a story that they had reported on, that the FBI director, Kash Patel, quote, has been visible at nightclubs far more than he's been on the 7th floor of the J. Edgar Hoover building. MSNBC clarified that they actually didn't have any information that was true whatsoever. These people have no embarrassment. They're like, that story, actually nothing about it's true at all. Not, oh, well, we misspoke. Well, we said 7th floor, but it was actually this floor. Is like a 100% wholly untrue. Completely not a bit of truth to it. Oopsie daisy, sorry. I'm telling you, the willingness to report on these things that turn out not to be true is done knowing full well that they don't know whether it's true or not. And they do that because that story will still live out there. If it's on the internet, it does not go away. So if some anti-Trump person, they heard that Kash Patel, he's just out there dance clubbing all the time, and somebody's like, no, that's not true. They can Google it, and they'll find that original story in which MSNBC is reporting that Kash Patel, according to sources, is out there drinking it up all the time at clubs instead of actually working at the Hoover building and doing his actual job.
You'll probably see him getting an award for this at the White House Correspondents' Dinner for award-winning journalism.
Most likely, yes. I really, genuinely, I've come to believe this, and I think it's something elected Democrats do as well. When Senator Van Hollen falsely claimed that the El Salvadorian gang member was a U.S. citizen, that wasn't early on. That was weeks after that became a story. And then, of course, his office. Oh yeah, no, that was just a mistake. That wasn't a mistake. That was done so that people who are misled into believing that Trump is deporting citizens, they can Google Donald Trump deporting citizens, and look, here's a U.S. senator talking about it. Because what's on the internet stays on the internet. Now, you may say, well, but the correction is out there as well. Well, people who are looking to demonize Donald Trump, they don't look for a correction. In that instance, when they Google Donald Trump deporting U.S. citizen and they find Van Hollen giving answering questions to the press and then falsely claiming Trump deported a U.S. citizen, they don't then say, "Oh, is there a correction to this story?" They don't Google that. They don't, it doesn't serve their purpose for one, but they just think, "Well, this is a U.S. senator. He's not going to lie." That's why they. I don't know that every one of them does it knowing that it isn't true, but I do believe that they aren't worried about whether it's true or not because they just want it out there so that people, when they search in the future, will find it, and then it will help part of the disinformation campaign. There's a story about Paige Buckers, Bueckers. I think that's how it's pronounced. She was a player at UConn, but she is now with the Dallas Wings. And she's a white chick, but she's one of these self-loathing white chicks who bemoans the fact that she benefits from white privilege in the WNBA. She was interviewed by ESPN as well as Time Magazine, and she talked about how it's still an issue every single day. There's white privilege every single day that I see. This would be, in my world, if I somehow had a megaphone in which I could speak to journalists, and then they would listen. When someone makes a claim like that, ask for an example. Ask for an example. She claims every single day she sees instances in which white people are afforded opportunities that blacks are not allowed to have. I would like to hear some examples. Where have you seen this? Where have you experienced this? Is it with some of your sponsorships, if you have any? Are you claiming that they will refuse to give an opportunity to somebody because they're black? Is that what you're claiming? Is it the team on which you play? Is it the university that you attended? Where is it that this white female WNBA player is every single day seeing before her very eyes opportunities that she is given in which black people are blocked from having and not allowed to have because they're black? It's a combination of brainwashing and the training of people not to think. I suspect if she were asked that question, she wouldn't even know where to be. Well, you see this on college campuses all the time in particular. They're infected with this. It's generally somebody that's libertarian-leaning or conservative that's doing the man on the street interview, and there's a person that's like, "Wow, I'm just fighting again. We need more diversity. Where we all this white privilege." And they'll ask, "Well, can you give me what example are you seeing?" They never can give an example. It is that combination of brainwashing, of racism, DEI, CRT, and having the ability and the willingness to critically think stripped from people that allows for them to make these absurd claims without ever providing any evidence and without ever being asked for evidence. I don't even know what they teach in journal. I'm not a journalist, never went to journalism school, but just as a curious human being, my very, very, very first thought would be, well, like what? I'd like to have some not even as a challenge or because I doubt, but if you make a claim like that, you talk about, well, here's what I see every day. Well, give me an example so that my viewers or my listeners or my readers will have a better idea of exactly what it is that you're talking about. But there's no interest in that whatsoever. Well, she just says it. Traffic. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see partly sunny skies with a high near 74. Tonight mostly cloudy and then a chance for thunderstorms mainly after 4 a.m. with a low around 55. Those showers and thunderstorms will continue throughout the day on Wednesday with a high near 66. And looking at Thursday, mostly cloudy in the morning and then a 70% chance for rain in the afternoon with a high near 68.
One of the big news stories yesterday was Trump talking about illegal aliens if they use that handy-dandy little app. It was an app that was developed by the Biden administration to help facilitate illegals coming into this country. And Trump's like, I know, let's repurpose that and use it to get people out. And telling these folks that if you get out, you leave, we'll pay for your flight, and then once you arrive, we'll give you $1,000. This is a new idea. Anytime a new idea comes about, I think that there's oftentimes well thought out discussions, not by everyone. I love watching people who hate Trump automatically coming out against it and then trying to figure out why. That's the best part. Is that's a horrible idea. Well, why is it such a bad idea? Well, I haven't gotten to that part yet. We don't know yet. Okay, well, you figure that out. You go find the meme that your close little knit bubble of a world is sharing on social media, and then you can come back and explain to us, articulate why it is that this is a bad idea. Now, there may be reasons for one to be against it. I think arguably one is that it is potentially seen as rewarding people who have come into this country illegally. I think it's also reasonable to weigh that against what the possible results could be. Now, if it worked, I think that might be worth it. They've done the numbers on it, and numbers, you can have different interpretations, but what they say is that when it comes to arresting, detaining, and deporting someone, on average, it's about $17,000. And so with $1,000 of cash, and then around what they say is $4,500 in the transportation and the facilitation of those voluntarily leaving, that you're talking, or about $3,500. So total about $4,500. And so then you look at it in terms of cost, and the difference between $4,500 and $17,000 is a pretty big difference. And so, okay, so what? They get $1,000, but they're gone. Well, what if they want to come back across the border? Well, this is the one thing that Trump has very, very, very successfully done, and closed the border. Well, what about in the future with future Democrats? And yeah, I mean that's what elections are for. I don't know if $1,000 is enough. It probably depends on the person who is here. If it is someone that maybe they're like hunkering down and they're like, I don't know what we should do. Yeah, we could go back. We still have family there. And then some people may worry if we pop up somewhere, then we're going to be arrested and deported. And if they're given the opportunity, hey, listen, just use the app and we'll get you out of here. Don't worry. And we'll give you $1,000. And by the way, there may be an opportunity for you to come here legally down the road. There may be some that do that. I don't know. I could see some arguing that you need to offer more money. I think the problem now is if $1,000 isn't something that creates a significant amount of people self-deporting, and then you're like, okay, well, we'll do 2,000. Then you're going to have people wait around until towards the end of the administration thinking, well, if they raised it once, maybe they'll raise it again. So let's just wait and see how high it goes before Trump is out of office, and wait until the very last minute. And that's the risky part of setting it at one level and then deciding to raise it in order to try and get more people to self-deport. Plus, you know that Democrats would then demand that you retroactively give the people who who went during the first round and got $1,000, that you give them an extra $1,000 retroactively in order to make up for the fact that they left with the $1,000 instead of the $2,000 people, and because you know that's exactly how it would play out. Now, for those who will claim that, and listen, so this is the way I approach things. I don't know. Will this work? I don't know if it'll work or not. So then I think, has this been done elsewhere? Well, yes, it has. So here's some interesting information, particularly for those of you who think that this is just so barbaric. Why can't we be more like Europe? A plan for President Donald Trump to pay illegal aliens to self-deport from the United States is a policy that has proven successful in cutting illegal immigration in countries such as Germany, Denmark, Sweden, Norway. Oh. On Monday, Trump's Department of Homeland Security announced a plan that will provide illegal aliens who self-deport from the U.S. using the CBP Home mobile app a $1,000 stipend only after they have returned to their country. Quote, even with the cost of the stipend, it's projected that the use of CBP Home will decrease the cost of a deportation by around 70%, a DHS press release stated. By the way, they say also the cost of a family in the United States long-term that's here illegally and all of the benefits they receive and medical care that they receive at the expense of the taxpayers, that you're talking about $1 million per family over time. The policy of self-deportation in exchange for money is already in place in several European countries. Now, I haven't really heard any of the major media outlets mention this little tidbit as they cover this story. And I'm not saying that they haven't, but it certainly isn't something that they're pointing to as, oh, hey, wait a minute, this isn't some barbaric idea developed by Donald Trump. Our sophisticated European allies have actually been doing this for some time. Late last year, the German government revealed that the policy of ensuring that, or had insured more than 8,000 migrants had returned to their home country in 10 months. Now, of course, they're going to have smaller numbers than the United States for a number of reasons, including the fact that their population is much less. And also, in a number of these countries, they are not given hand over fist taxpayer dollars in order to, here in the United States, you get gift cards, you get to stay in luxury hotels, you get essentially everything you want. And that's not always the level of accommodation that they get in other countries. And so they are not going to necessarily have such a high percentage of individuals in the country illegally to self-deport in the first place. But in Germany, 8,000 returned to their home country in 10 months. In Sweden, asylum applications dropped to a 40-year low last year as the Scandinavian country pays migrants to self-deport with plans to drastically increase such payments to migrants to incentivize repatriation. In Denmark, which also gives migrants a financial stipend to self-deport, asylum applications are extremely low compared to other European countries. In 2023, only 2,100 migrants sought asylum in Denmark. Norway has an assisted return policy as well. In 2024, fewer than 5,000 migrants applied for asylum in that Scandinavian destination. Trump's plan to financially assist illegal aliens in their self-deportation from the U.S. is likely to be far less costly to American taxpayers than the annual cost of illegal immigration. Today, the nation's 11 to 22 million illegal aliens cost Americans about $150 billion every year. $150 billion every year. That figure does not incorporate in lower or lost wages, unpaid medical bills, or public school services that Americans are forced to incur as a result of illegal immigration. So any of your European-loving friends that love to trash all over the idea it's just another idiotic idea by the Orange Man, you can let them know, actually, our European friends have been doing this with success for some time. I want a great homeloan.com. You got home loan needs. You got the Carrickers and their team at iwantagreathomeloan.com. Utilize them for their expertise. I know I hammer away at this. So much of what you hear is selling points from some of these industries, particularly when it comes to home loan and refinancing. It's the process itself. Well, what about the decision? That's a big commitment. You're talking about a mortgage that is a longer commitment than, I don't know, a lot of people and like their marriages. 30 years is a long time, you know. So it's a big commitment. And it's not something that should be taken lightly. And for many of you, you won't take it lightly or you haven't taken it lightly. But you want to be as informed as possible in order to make the decision, and that's where I think that at least half, if not more than half, of the benefit comes into play from the Carrickers and their team providing you with that information. And everyone's situation is going to be different, but that's why they're there, to get that info from you. And then to say, all right, well, based on your situation, here's what I think. You got to keep this in mind. For you, this is going to be the situation as opposed to that. And then you get to make the decision on your own. And then they, of course, are there to help you with the process. And by the way, just the intel part of this, the gathering of information and them helping provide you with what information you need in order to make that decision, there's no cost to that. iwantagreathomeloan.com because you do. Yesterday, we talked about how it is pretty clear the Democrats are out to get rid of Fetterman. And we've seen this in the New York Magazine, a piece there in particular, in which you have a number of Democrats, a lot of anonymous sources that are saying he needs to go. All of a sudden, the guy that the Democrats were saying he's perfectly fine are now telling stories about him wandering through the streets of Washington, D.C., almost getting hit by a car. He's confused. He's a megalomaniac. We think he's off his meds. Suddenly, the people who are telling us he's perfectly fine are now telling us this guy's a crazy lunatic who needs to be removed from office. That only happens when they have decided, yeah, we need to get rid of him and replace him with another Democrat. And we don't know whether those things are true or not. There's this other story about a Democrat congresswoman from Colorado, Representative Yadira Caravio. And I want to share with you some details that have come out about her that I believe demonstrate a pretty unfavorable pattern of behavior by the Democrat Party and facilitating some of these people running for office who, for the sake of their own age, cognitive disabilities, or mental health, should be the last people that they keep encouraging to run for office. The Free Beacon is noting that the Congresswoman's frightening and traumatizing behavior while serving in Congress and running for re-election last year prompted her own aides to propose a safety plan, according to the Colorado Sun. They requested sharp objects be removed from her office and said that they did not want to be responsible for talking her, quote, through suicidal thoughts or keeping her company during a crisis. So in other words, they were worried enough. They didn't even want to be around her. These are her people. The Congresswoman's first known suicide attempt came in February of 2024 when staffers rushed to her home after she sent them concerning messages. They learned that she'd taken 19 sleeping pills and was drinking alcohol. She was rushed to the hospital and was placed on an emergency mental health hold. A police officer noted in an application for the hold that Caraveo, a licensed physician, said, quote, "This will put me to sleep for a while." The Colorado Sun, which obtained the application, learned of the suicide attempt the Saturday before Election Day. Caraveo's team responded to the outlet's inquiries with a cease and desist letter threatening to sue if it published a story. So much for freedom of press. Then in April of 2024, Emergency responders were called to Caraveo's district office to treat a woman suffering from an overdose after taking about 20 lorazepam, an anxiety and sleep drug recently made famous by a suicidal character in HBO's White Lotus. Multiple sources confirmed to the Colorado Sun that the woman was the congresswoman. She was meeting with local Latino leaders when the drugs took effect, causing the meeting to be cut short. She also had to miss an event later that day, opening up her 2024 campaign headquarters. Now, they're saying that she's better now and everything's fine, but I mean, there just seems to be a pattern of behavior here by Democrats that when there is a person that for their own health should not be continuing with the stresses of being an elected official or running for office, they force them to do it anyway. I mean, you think about, this is a woman that was desperately in need of help, that had tried to kill herself, and they threatened to sue the local newspaper if they publish anything about it because, for obvious reasons, they didn't want her to lose, or, voters to go, well, maybe we shouldn't elect this person to be in office. But they're so hell-bent on making sure that they didn't lose that seat. I mean, look at the way they rolled Dianne Feinstein around because she occupied a seat. The stories that would come out about how she didn't know what was going on around her. Obviously, the Joe Biden situation, the John Fetterman situation, if you believe these people that are anonymous sources that they've known for years that he has real mental issues. And now this congresswoman that not once but twice apparently tried to kill herself, and they just did everything they could to cover it up so that they wouldn't lose the seat. I mean, it's just sad how, and listen, I'm not saying that the Republican Party may not have situations like this also occur where they don't want to lose a seat, so they try to cover up what is clearly a mental health issue within their political party. It may happen, but it just seems as these are the ones we know about within the Democrat Party. And some of these aren't simply about an age issue. This is about people that seriously need help, and instead of helping them, they try to cover it up so that they don't lose the seat. And by they, I mean the party, the people around that individual. It's sad, and it shows how disposable people are culturally to that one political party in particular. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers.
Thank you. The Pyramid Roofing Company. Many of you in the listening area experienced storm damage from last week's storms, and if that storm damage included your roof, I want to recommend Josh and his team over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. Now, the Pyramid team, they focus on the best solution for you and your home, and sometimes that doesn't mean a whole new roof, but maybe just a simple roof repair. They're going to be upfront and honest about the work that needs to be addressed, and they will also work through the insurance process without making you sign anything. So if it is time to schedule that free roof inspection, go ahead and give Josh a call today. You can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
So it was announced yesterday that Israel is planning what is going to be called, or is called, Operation Gideon's Chariots to take over Gaza and clear out Hamas, calling upon its military reserves to prepare for the massive new operation in which it plans to conquer Gaza, eliminate Hamas, neighborhood by neighborhood over several months. So prepare to hear the term occupy a lot. And you know what? There is nothing that will be better for the citizens of Gaza than this. This is the liberation. All the talk about, liberate these people. The organization, the grouping of people who have had their thumb on the citizens of Gaza is Hamas. In terms of quality of life, the absolute best thing that can happen to all of those people, all of these innocent human beings, is for Israel to go in, to occupy, and to clear out Hamas. Which, of course, is why you can expect the left to be completely opposed to it. We've got Great Escape open. Of course, we have for a couple of weeks. All the details at ksgf.com. It's coming up November 9th through the 16th. Get all the details at, again, ksgf.com. Glenn Beck's next. I'm Nick Reed.